Okay, welcome to Detroit in Black and White. It is Saturday in Detroit. I don't know if it's in the 50s or whatever. And if you were a Piston fan last night, there was a miracle of sorts. I think they were down by as many as 27 points, and they came back and won by, a decent margin. So they play game 7 on Sunday at 3:30 here in Detroit at the Little Caesars Arena. And so another thing, interesting, I should say, welcome, Jim Nardone. Before
Good morning. The Little Caesars Arena doesn't have the kind of ring that Fenway Park or something has, right?
Right. It's the same Tiger Stadium, Comerica Park. I mean, we get used to whatever it gets called for some reason. I mean, I have another website called TickleTheWire.com, which is I started right after it got a buyout from the Washington Post. And Tickle the Wire, I think some people thought, oh, what is that, a porn site or whatever? But Tickle the Wire is a term used in law enforcement when they put up a wiretap. I think particularly it used to be more of a term by the FBI. They put up a wiretap and they wanted somebody to talk on the wiretap. So they would do something to tickle the wire, which would maybe they would make an arrest or leak some information in the press and hope that the people on the wire would get on the phone and go, oh my God, they just arrested Joe. You better shut up and hide the money, and you better not say anything about those kilos. And that was sort of the whole idea there. But I had after I left the Washington Post, I was covering a story. I actually broke a story about an FBI agent who had been leaking information to an actor who was helping out a detective in LA who was illegally wiretapping people. And I went to the arraignment, and afterwards, the prosecutor came out and I said, hi, Allan Lengel from TickleTheWire.com. And one of my podmates from the Washington Post, a younger guy, just burst out laughing. And afterwards he said, I don't see how you can say Tickle the Wire with a straight face. And then about 3 weeks later, he wrote me and said, that's kind of a cool name. So I think people get used to these stadium names. I mean, they're all named that we don't love it. It just sounds so artificial. The MCI Center, the Verizon Center, the PNC Center, it just doesn't have the same ring as Tiger Stadium or, Fenway Park or, Comiskey Park or whatever. But anyways, Jim, do you have any outrage or anything you'd like to say as we get on this morning?
I do. First, I want to say hello, Marlon. Good morning to you. Good morning, Janet Overall. Thank you, Janet, for sharing. Tamika Rainey. Good morning, Jill Sheridan. Good morning from the Sunshine State for you. We wish we had a little more. I feel the sun today, but it might be sun with about 45 degrees out there. May is not being kind to us. Mr. 1213, good morning. Mike Bunch, we had some good discussion last night. Go Pistons. Mike had some good points, as Jill did, and everybody else. Marlon. Shyla, 87, good morning to you. Sorry you have to work this morning. Shyla. Shyla S, 87 maybe. Kenneth Reed, good morning. Glad that we're missing one of the other Kenneths. I don't know what happened to the other Kenneth, but he's out there somewhere. The name changes as often as some people change. It feels that way, Jill. And I think here at the baseball stadium, park, whatever it's called, the park, we're expecting another change here next year. I don't support the Pistons because it's the owner, Tom Goris, has a company that makes millions from charging prison inmates' families and friends extremely high fees for making costs. Funny you bring that up, Les. We had what a racket that is, because we had people when I was the chief, before I was the chief, they'd come in and they would want to split the money, and it was very profitable for the people that put a telephone in jails. And we let people use our phone because I didn't want to pay $25 or $50 for a phone call to call their family. And hey, join those with us. Thank you. So here's my outrage.
Sure.
And I want to talk about politics in general. It's what I think is outrageous is, one of our candidates who's going to be on the show, and I talked about her a little bit yesterday. I don't want to get into specifics, but she was talking about uneducated Nazis. And you know what? I couldn't sleep last night. I was thinking about what people consider uneducated or undereducated. Um, why a candidate from a party that for 75 or 100 years counted on, our auto workers and our chemical workers and our steel workers, them now disparage those folks and say that the country's in bad shape because the uneducated have too much, I guess you would argue, too much control. Where would we be without our soldiers and sailors, the kids that were 18 years old that went and fought for this country, our truck drivers, plumbers, auto workers, road construction people? Try and get somewhere without you think you need a college degree to build a road? No, you need engineers. But the people that are out there sweating when it's 90 degrees, we might consider them, I won't consider them anything. I'm not considering them undereducated or uneducated. I have a college degree. I never felt above another human being in my life. And that's the way the Democratic Party used to be.
Right.
If you need a heating and cooling guy in January and it's 18 below zero, you don't ask to see his college degree. If you have 3 inches of waste on your basement floor and you need a plumber, 4 inches of raw sewage, 6 inches of raw sewage, I think it's Jimmy the plumber.
A lot of raw sewage.
Right? Was that his name, that came out and helped all those people in Southwest Detroit when there was a water main break and all their basements flooded? Nobody asked Jimmy for his degree. He mattered more to those folks that day than their lawyer or their doctor or whoever else. So I think it's time that we quit attacking people that chose a different path than us.
Mm-hmm.
It's outrageous that we have people that are running for office in this state that are disparaging people that do not have a college degree. I'm sick of it. We had yesterday, I finished the podcast, went on, and Abdul El Sayed is running for U.S. Senate in the state of Michigan, right? And he is, I don't know if anybody saw this. I saw it last night at 11 o'clock. Talking about the vice president. You can talk about the vice president of the United States. You can say he's got the personality of a doorknob. I have no problem with that. In fact, I agree with you on that. But when you start talking about his children and saying that his kids are going to hate him when they grow up because they're brown and he hates brown people, where's all this hate coming from? This sounds like the hate of losers. And I'm tired of it. Stand up for what's right and stand up for everybody, not just people that went to Notre Dame and people that went to Cornell and people that went to Harvard. It's frustrating to me. I needed a heating and cooling guy this winter, and I called him, and he came over in a half hour. I didn't ask his college degree.
You didn't ask for his college. Say, by the way, when you come over, make sure you bring your graduation certificate, or I'll call someone else. I'm just kidding. But, I think the thing with J.D. Vance is he's made some comments about foreigners, and he's married to a woman. I think she's American. She's Indian, but she's American. But, yeah, they have brown children. And so I think, Donald Trump, who's railed against immigrants so much, and 2 of 3 of his wives are immigrants. I think we have to be careful that we are sometimes demonizing all foreign people. My parents came from Europe. They were raised in Europe. They came here after the war, World War II. And I think there is on both sides some rhetoric. I agree with you on the education thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, everybody on this earth who's doing a job is a job that we need. We need, somebody to stock the shelves. We need somebody to pick the fruits that end up in our grocery store. We need firefighters who many some may have high school education, some have college educations. And
many of them go through, a lot of them are, paramedics. That's a pretty extensive school, and people reckon, if you call them at 2 a.m. because you fell down your steps at home and you need someone to get you to the hospital and take your vitals, these firefighters have that.
Yeah. They do amazing stuff. And we do sometimes, I mean, it's when we have people who are making condescending remarks based on people's level of education. I mean, I mean, you talk to lawyers who say they'll say there's a lot of dumb lawyers out there. That means they've gone to undergrad school and they've gone to law school, and some of them aren't that smart. They're good at testing or they're good at studying in academics or something. They may not have a lot of good common sense. I mean, we've all seen people who are brilliant without, there have been some people at, my partner at Deadline Detroit, Bill McGraw, who was just amazingly smart, amazing writer, great reporter. He dropped out of college to get a job at the Free Press. I think he eventually got his degree, but it doesn't matter. I mean, some people are really well read, and and some people just have great common sense. And some people, look, whether they're educated or not, some people are not smart, and some people are smart. And so I agree. The Democratic Party has to be careful about that. I feel like the Republican Party, they say they're for the working class people, but I mean, I don't think Donald Trump has great respect for really the working class.
I agree with that.
But
I don't disagree with that.
I see a Washington, working in Washington for quite a long time, there was sort of a little bit of a detachment, and I'm talking about it all, whatever. I mean, I worked at the Washington Post, where a lot of Ivy Leaguers from Harvard, Princeton, Yale. And, I think some of them grew up in middle-class families, but some of them grew up in very privileged families. And I think they didn't understand the working class. They didn't understand, the plumbers or whatever. I mean, here in Detroit, I mean, there's more of an acknowledgement. There's more a working class group here, but you go to certain areas, you go to Manhattan in New York. I mean, it's so expensive now to live there, and really lots of parts of Brooklyn, that all you have is like very wealthy people, or at least educated people are making big salaries, and they're not exposed to that. I think it's great that we get exposed, and even culturally, we don't see enough of people getting, like, Black people being exposed to some white people, or white people being exposed to Black people, or people being exposed to Muslims or Jews or whatever. They don't know anyone, and they have opinions based on what? On talk, on the internet, or whatever. They form opinions as to what these people are about. And, white people in the suburbs or the rural areas of Michigan who stay away from Detroit because they're scared of Detroit, they have ideas of what Black people are. There's so much ignorance, and a lot of it's based on the fact that people don't have exposure to those people. So anyways, that's
a couple of points. Go ahead, Allan.
Yeah. So, but anyways, so that's, yeah, go ahead.
A couple of points. Very unfortunate for Spirit, Hazel Park Taekwondo. I feel bad for the employees of Spirit. Kenneth, Reed, Karen. See, I did not know. I'm not updated on what's going on with Spirit. I thought they were still in the air, but maybe they're not this morning. Indeed, it takes all kinds of people to make the crooked world run halfway smoothly. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for what you've done to make this a better place for all of us. Timothy Square Bay, good morning to you. Les, watch the documentary Ivory Towers about how the college university experience is not valid necessarily. Kenneth says, rest in peace, Spirit Airlines. And Kenneth Powell is here. It's about time both Kenneths got back together. I was worried about you guys. Like and share the edutainment. Kenneth Powell, we missed you for a couple of shows. Glad you're back. Thank you, Timothy, for being with me on that one. The skilled trades people are the smart ones. In fact, I have a brother that was skilled trades, Kenneth, and he was in 2 different skilled trades. He was first a pipe fitter, and then he became a model maker for General Motors. And you're absolutely right. They do pretty good, and I don't ask the people that build the models for the new Corvette. if they have a college degree or not, and some do and some don't. So
my brother, who did have a college degree, but he went into heating and cooling, and his employees didn't have college degrees, and they helped people's air conditioning and heating stay on, particularly in the winter when the heat went out, when the furnace was busted. He went out, or his workers went out, and so here is Spirit Airlines. Here's a story in the New York Times. It says Spirit Airlines reshaped aviation in the United States by stripping down flying to its essentials and selling what were often the cheapest tickets around. But the airline shut down for good on Saturday, a victim of rising costs it once excelled at controlling. In a statement just after 2 a.m., Spirit said it had canceled all flights and told passengers not to go to the airport. On the airline's homepage, a bright yellow banner declared the airline was winding down all operations.
Tragic for the people of Detroit, and tragic for the people that fly Spirit Airlines.
Right.
Janet overall says, good morning, Karen. 7 states have made these calls for inmates free. Les, thank you, Les. Karen C says, good morning to our handsome host, and Lady T too. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I think you're being a little too nice today, Karen, but we'll take it. We'll take your compliment. It was very controversial when FAU was going to allow GEO Group to slap their names on the stadium because of the large contribution. The joke was to call it Alcatraz, home of the FAU Owls. Thank you, Jill. I like that. Alcatraz. We're the ones the politicians depend on. It's not the uneducated. It's the media. Thank you, Mike. And Karen says, good morning. I got back up. Look at who else is benefiting from these phones in the states and the county jails. The point is made. Hazel Park, thank you. And we have Les Little, our good friend. Perception, Karen Winston, it's common sense versus book sense. Thank you, Les. I don't, these people are professionals. A lot of these folks are professionals. We need food and service work. Go ahead.
I'll say something real quick, and then we'll welcome Les. Spirit Airlines, I on occasion would fly, but when you were looking for cheaper flights, you'd always be like, okay, look at this, so much cheaper than all these other airlines. And then you add up the baggage, you have a carry-on, they charge you, have a check-in bag, they charge you for getting a reserved seat ahead of time. And before you know it, it was more expensive than the other airlines. So I rarely flew, because usually if the Delta was flying the same routes, Delta had more routes. Delta wasn't nickel and diming you on every little thing. So Les, welcome to the show. Welcome to Saturday morning here in Detroit. Anything on your mind, or?
Yeah. Good morning, Allan. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Les.
It's kind of strange that we talk about uneducated, but we spend a lot of time trying to really educate our children here in the States United. We have made it difficult for education to be obtained. We make it unaffordable, and we created a new company store atmosphere when it comes to that student loan. So it's just kind of funny that we always want to talk about how we are putting our faith in the uneducated in our community.
It's criminal, our college education. My niece, her son graduated high school last year, and she's divorced from her husband, who's from Slovenia, where Melania is from, Melania Trump. And he is going to school in college in Slovenia, which is free for everybody, which it should be here. I mean, if you want to go, at least the public universities, I mean, you want to go to Harvard, Yale, Duke University, pay 50, 60,000, George Washington University, pay 60 grand a year, have that option. But here, Wayne State, Michigan State, University of Michigan, state schools should be free for everybody. And unless I agree, I mean, we're cutting out so many people who just can't afford to go. And, you don't necessarily need a college education for everything, but it helps if you're in competition with other people who have it, and you're at a disadvantage if you have 5 people who have a college degree and one person has a high school degree. Chances are they're going to hire the people with the college degree.
I have a question for the both of you, Les. Maybe it's time these politicians, and your thoughts will help, these politicians start thinking, I think this is your point, Les, of educating our young people. Then we won't have to worry about people that are less educated. Maybe if they focused on that instead of focusing on how, how uneducated, undereducated. I don't use these terms. I don't believe that people are or undereducated that chose a different path. But how about you focus on people in the 2nd and 3rd grade instead of the 40-year-old people that don't have employment options?
I think that's a good point there, Jim. Because that is the trouble grade set that I guess in a quote in our study from these guys that are supposed to be college educated. But if you look at the picture, it's a whole lot of college educated guys in Washington, D.C. that act like they don't even have a high school diploma. Okay. So when you say educated, that's a relative term to me, because my mom had a 6th grade education, so-called 6th grade education, but she was more intelligent than some of the college graduates that I used to run into.
I'm sorry, I'm going to let you go, but I'm just going to say this. I am not considering these people under or uneducated. I'm talking about the politicians column.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
Let me be clear about that. I'm sorry, Allan, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree. I mean, in terms of we have to emphasize better education. I mean, here, in Detroit, it's not that we're not paying the money for the education, but we're not providing an environment. But I also, when I was on strike at the Detroit News, I was a substitute teacher at Hazel Park High School. And I can tell you that what's also important is to educate the parents on the importance of their children being educated. And I think sometimes parents aren't, my parents were from Europe. They weren't helicopter parents. They weren't like, they didn't know. I know, like, you go to some of these schools, particularly in Bloomfield Hills and stuff, and the parents know every teacher that the kid has, like, how's so-and-so, and they know how they're doing I didn't have helicopter parents who were like on top of every class, but education was important. And I went to school with Adolph, and we went to Oak Park High, where it wasn't a question of, are you going to college? It was a question of, what college are you going to? It was just part of the whole school culture there. And parents were concerned about their kids getting good educations. And I think sometimes, I know in Hazel Park, I saw some of the parents just didn't care they weren't involved enough to care about their kids. And I think that's also an important component in education, So
yeah, I agree with that. And tomorrow, of course, if you're a fan of my show, and Vanessa, I've given her a poster of the May 3rd, 2002. I want to ask Allan, how did the news coverage cover the trip to Cincinnati that day, when only 8 buses went into Cincinnati to the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals to hear the case of the emergency manager? I believe that's one of the reasons we have this problem of education right now, is that the emergency manager took over one of the most powerful cities in the country, in my city, and they took my vote away from me, because I voted for a school board of my choice. Right. And of course, the governor took and put a control board in this place. Yeah. So how did the news cover that particular story? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, you know what? To be honest, I was in Washington at the time when that happened. You're talking about in 2002.
Yeah, it was May 3rd.
2002. I was in Washington at the time, but I know the guy who was running. I'm trying to remember his name now. He had been he had 2 of the first name. His first and last name was like, whatever his name. Do you remember what his name was?
Are you talking about the emergency manager?
Yeah, for the school district.
Oh,
that was Robert Bob.
Yeah, Robert Bob. Yeah, right. I always thought 2 names, 2 first names. And Robert Bob was actually a very well respected deputy mayor in DC when I was there. And then so I heard when he came here, I thought, okay, great. But then I read a lot of stuff that he had kind of fallen short uh, on that. I think, I think we have a problem here in the city, and we've talked about this on the show so many times about the school board and the mayor sort of divorcing themselves and saying, well, we don't have any control over it. And I don't see how you can operate effectively a school board without the mayor and the city being part of that. It's like they act like they're two totally separate entities. And I think Detroit has suffered because of that system. That's my opinion. As far as the coverage of that, I don't recall, because I recall all that going on. I was following it from Washington, but I wasn't here and I wasn't at the Detroit News.
Yeah.
But
Can I get a couple comments in real quick
Yeah,
before we move on? Karen Winston says perception. Thank you, Karen, for that comment. We know what you're talking about. It's like common sense versus book sense. Less more. Derek Henry, good morning. Glad to see you on the show this morning, Derek. Thank you for joining us. Les is saying, hey, Les. Jan Salak from good morning, Les, Allan, Jim, and all the good peeps, saying hi to everybody. Good morning, Jan. Terry McCrimmon, our people better wake the hell up. These southern states are rushing to redraw district seats, and the losers will be black representation. And I think the loss of black representation in the United States Congress. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Les. More. Absolutely. Good point. I like it when I make a good point. It's not very often. Thank you guys for recognizing that unusual occurrence. The job market is tough out here today, too, Kenneth Reed. In ancient times, less more, education dealt with bringing up your natural talents versus putting stuff inside you. That's a great point, too, Les. Education is more than just a classroom, and people need to know. A lot of these folks that went to some of these Ivy League schools, and I don't want to, I don't want to, what's the word I want to use? I don't want to talk disparaging against people that, were raised in privileged households that never had a job in their life either. But that's a different kind of education than a lot of the folks in this area had. Their moms and dads and uncles and cousins all worked for the big three or for U.S. Steel or for Uniroyal. And they learned a lot, and some of them never walked into a class. Some of them never walked into a classroom. Go ahead.
The thing I agree with all the discussions that we've had. The one thing that I think we have to also be careful about is that I think, and I'm expressing my bias here, the Trump administration has made it has also been very anti-education in terms of like people who have a lot of education. Like RFK comes in and is suddenly our Secretary of Health and Human Services with limited education about the field in which he is overseeing. And they're shitting on the people who have expertise, who are highly educated in the medical field and in sciences. And they've kind of tried to minimize them by saying, who cares? This is how I feel. I think this is important. And I think there's also been that sort of wave of anti-education, anti-intellect, which I think has been, it's complicated because the Democratic Party has also tried to be like Governor Beshear came in from Kentucky, spoke at the Michigan Democratic Convention on the weekend and said, let's stop talking in bullshit terms, like talking about, about hunger, is saying, I can't remember what the term is.
We talked about your article on the show last night. We talked about what Andy Beshear said. So
yeah, and so I think that's sort of saying, hey, let's stop.
He's talking about insecurity, food insecurity. Talk about people being hungry,
people being unhoused. And then they talked about inmates as being justice involved.
Involved, right? That's exactly the term.
And after a while, it's like we don't even know what we're talking. We're trying to hide what the issue is. Like when we're talking about, when we're talking about hunger, we're talking about food insecurity or whatever like that. It's just a nice nice term to a thing that's really, I feel after a while they disguise it. I always think back in 1987, I was at the Detroit News. I was in Duluth, Minnesota, working on a story related to Michigan. I was interviewing a guy, a salesperson at the mall, and he was a clothing salesman. And I'm interviewing him, and at the end I say, well, what's your title? And he says, associate. And I said, well, associate salesperson? No. Associate manager? No, just associate. So I'm like, I wrote down salesperson. I think after a while we try to hide so that people can't even figure out what it is that we're talking about. And I think Andy Bashir was saying, hey, we're sounding like too snooty. The Democratic Party is using all these highfalutin terms that people are offended by because they feel like you're trying to say you're better than me, you're smarter than me. And the Democratic Party has to, for a long time, has been the party of the working class, and it's sort of lost some of that connection there. So,
and we know who didn't see the Friday night podcast, Allan Lengel.
I saw a little bit of it. I went actually last night to Brad Galley, Channel 7 there was a going away party. It was last night out in Troy, and then I went in second half of the game, watched the game with some friends, and so
we talked about the waste of money. Andy Bashir spent $20 million on his campaign and asked how many people that are food insecure or hungry could he have fed with that $20 million. And we talked a little bit about that. The attitude of the billions and billions of dollars. Is there a method to, ask people, if you're going to make a contribution, is there a method that we could tag a number on that, whether it's 10, 20, 30, or 40%, that instead of, you put $20 million or people put into this campaign with PACs and individual donations, why can't a portion of that go, instead of talking about feeding the people, why aren't we feeding the people, right? Take 20% of that $20 million, and that's 2 million people. $2 million, people can be fed with that. It's kind of disingenuous to say, well, I'm worried about food insecurity, but the campaign for governor cost $70 million in Kentucky. That's kind of frustrating.
Well, I don't know if it's disingenuous, but it's certainly contradicting what the reality is. But look,
it's not a knock on him.
No, I'm saying that unfortunately our political system is like, people are pouring now. The Republicans are, I can't remember the number, but it's an outrageous number. The Republican Party is going to pour into the Mike Rogers campaign to win the seat. And what we're seeing, how much money, millions and millions are being poured into seats all around the country for people, and particularly wealthy people. We see, what's his name? Perry Johnson. I think I've seen figures of maybe, I can't remember, 25 million or maybe $50 million in campaign ads. It's like, think of all the good that could be doing, particularly for a guy who's not going to win the seat. It's his personal money. Why don't you establish some foundations and help people go to college and help feed people? Instead, it's a vanity campaign for him. It's like, hey, but and again, I think after Trump, nobody thought Trump would ever win. So I think some wealthy people look at it and say, hey, nobody thought Trump can win, so why not me?
And Terry McCrimmon hits on it. Thank you, Terry, for your point. The question is, when you're collecting, you can use whatever word you want to use for it, but when you're collecting $20 million to run for office and you're talking about food insecurity, to me, that should be outrageous. They should appeal 10 million off that and send it somewhere. We talk about reparations. We always say there's not enough money, but I'm going to tell you, my point is there is enough money if you want to do it, instead of put limits on these campaigns.
Well, talk about
billions of dollars to get somebody elected, or as you say, to not get elected, when this money could go somewhere else. And I get people have free will and they want to give money to Governor Bashir, but they should be peeling some of that money off to help other people.
We also talk about reparations, and we talk about Pete Hegseth talking about the war in Iran. They're saying we don't have money, but then again, the war in Iran has cost, he says, $25 billion. they're saying that it's more probably closer to 50 billion. I have
Probably
a,
more than that. At least.
there's a comedian. Let me see if I can get this here. Whoops. There's a comedian, Corey Kahani, who says, I want to read this. She says, when my son was 8, when Obama was running, he said to me, Mommy, explain to me the difference between a Republican and a Democrat. I didn't know what the right thing to say was. This was the best I could come up with. I understand a Democrat is like this really nice uncle who promises to take you to Disney World, and then something always comes up and he never comes through. And a Republican is this grumpy uncle, and he tells you there's no money for Disney World, but then you find out that he went without you. And I thought it was very funny, but I thought, yeah, some truth to it. You know what? We're back to the ads for the county treasurer, so I think we need to play one of those. So I'll leave it to Teresa to find her.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990, or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
Okay, welcome back. We're here on a Saturday. We've got Jim Nardone, Les Little, and I'm Allan Lengel. Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that is always puzzling for everybody is that when we talk about reparations, when we talk about supplementing Obamacare or whatever, so people can have health care, and they're told, no, there's no money. And then we have a war that was not a scheduled war. It was not really a mandatory war. And we're spending 25 billion, 50 billion. And I think people have a right to scratch their head and protest and say, what are we doing here? Why is there no money for what we need back home? And I'm for, you know, I think we need to have a global view of the world as well for a multitude of reasons. So we can't ignore what's going on. But I think people are seriously questioning and legitimately questioning the Iran war. I thought they'd go on for 3-4 days, hit some military installations, whatever, go after some uranium, whatever. But now we're caught in a conundrum we can't get out of. It reminds me, I watch these Facebook pictures, these little videos, and they'll have like the honey badger going up against 2 major lions. And the lions think like, we're lions, you're a honey badger. And the honey badger holds its own and pushes the lions back. And I think that's what's happening here in Iran. I mean, you have the US and Israel, 2 incredible military mights. And Iran has figured out a way how to push back, even though Iran's, taken a serious hit. And now we're seeing gasoline that is now approaching $5 a gallon. And we're talking about $2 more a gallon. And it's like, I have a work share space that I go to. I walk to most days, and it's not that far. So I'm not paying every day for gas, but there are people who are driving a half hour, 45 minutes, even 20 minutes, or then having to visit a relative or take care of an elderly relative or whatever. And you're paying some serious money at the gas pump now.
Can I get to a couple comments, Allan, sure, and then go to your video? I'd like Les's thoughts on the video that you showed us before the show started, and some of our viewers. But I want to say that Terry McCrimmon, Republicans can be described as Ebenezer Scrooge, and the Democrats can be described as Annie. It's a hard knock. You made me laugh, Terry. I was trying to concentrate, and you got me. Take care of home first. Now they're talking about going after African American country minerals. Timothy, thank you. The minerals in African country minerals. I'm sorry. Republicans, we did that. This is a great question. Les Moore, why does the Wayne County Commission, what do the Wayne County Commissioners do, and why are they seldom talked to? I think that's a great point, Les. We don't know let's face it. It's another layer of government, the county. We have to have a sheriff's office. We have to have a road department in the county. And after that, maybe there's some other necessary points, but
the airports, all that stuff.
You got me.
When I was at the Detroit News, that was always considered one of the lesser beats. It was a dead beat. And they actually put a guy, Fred Gerard, who was an investigative reporter. He got into an entanglement with the Metro editor who didn't like him. And as a punishment, he put him on Wayne County, which was like basically the Maytag repairman. You could, if you wanted, you could do nothing on that beat. But Fred, to his credit, actually started kicking ass and exposing some bullshit. Nobody covers the Wayne County. That's the problem, is nobody covers Wayne County Commissioners. So we don't know what they do. They do something, but we don't know it because it's a low on the totem pole of beats at newspapers.
Can I clarify one point? That
Sure.
The Wayne County Airport Authority is not a part of the Wayne County government. They have three people on the board, and they think they run the airport, which my brother was the CEO of the airport, and they tend to believe they run the airport, but there really is an authority. He has 3 out of the 7 seats. When I say he, I mean the county executive. That would take campaign finance reform, Kenneth Reed, which I highly doubt that both sides will have. I agree with that, Kenneth. I'm just a what if. What if? Why don't we do this? Why, when you see all the waste of money, the commercials, the advertise, millions and billions of dollars for the winners and losers, why can't we redirect some of that money? We talked about it last night. United States has the most poorly educated people. By the way, I put my glasses on so I could read because I'm not doing very good. Of so-called civilized society. Governor Beshear actually was speaking about how the corporate Dems typically talk down to everyday people. The MDP opened an office here in Detroit, and I'm concerned whether they can turn out the vote. 20 million to gain access to power, Terry said. This is where we are, folks, and I think that's right. I think that before the USA helps others with poverty, they should make sure that poverty doesn't exist in the U.S. Karen, that was kind of my point. The people that are talking about are the people that are running these big time campaigns, and they need to. I believe this. They need to peel some of that money off and take care of the people that they lead. They're responsible for leading their communities. It's easier to control a population if they dumb them down. Terry says it's all about classism. Miss Sheila, thank you, Miss Sheila, our educator, comes through. I met Robert Bob at a former Rite Aid on Woodward. He let me ask him several questions. And express my concerns without losing his patience. I was rough on him. Thank you, Les. Timothy, rich people don't want poor people. Don't want poor people to get a good education. There may be some truth to that, Timothy. Thank you. Robert, Bob was a true bum. Counterpoint here in Detroit. He helped cripple the Detroit public schools. I'm always happy to see the Kenneths participate. And hello, Stephanie. Stephanie's been keeping a low profile. Stephanie Jackson. Education is a passport to the future, for tomorrow only belongs to those who prepare for it today. Malcolm X, June 1964, Kenneth Reed. In ancient times, education dealt with I think we caught up. I don't want to repeat. So, Allan, do you want to go ahead and show that?
Yeah, sure.
And talk about that a little bit.
Okay, this is on voting rights and the Supreme Court ruling.
This morning, the Supreme Court delivering a major blow to the landmark Voting Rights Act.
The court's conservative majority ruling 6-3 that Louisiana's current congressional map with 2 majority African-American districts is unconstitutional, saying lawmakers allowed race to play a part in government decision-making. Democrats blasting the ruling, arguing that other majority black districts are now vulnerable to being erased.
That's right. the Supreme Court saw that Louisiana had 2 whole black congressmen, and they were like, whoa, what is this, Showtime at the Apollo?
This is Samuel Alito writing, race can only be taken into account when there's evidence that a state intentionally drew its districts to afford minority voters less opportunity because of their race.
That's crazy, all right? So just to be clear, for Alito, the map is not racist unless the guy drawing it finishes it and goes, man, I'm racist.
Well, that's what do you have any feelings about the whole the
Well, I
Supreme Court ruling?
showcased a decision on my show. Several social media reporters have played them on my show today about the decision the Supreme Court made. But we got to ask the question: how did we get here? And this take years and years of development to get here where we are today. You know, I played also the 1866 massacre of Memphis, Tennessee, where the city went wild and seemed like nobody did anything. And it seems that way today. When you stick your hand up like I did, and maybe Jim did, to take an oath to the Constitution and to protect and serve. And that's not happening when you see law enforcement agents or the sheriffs was just watching them burn the town down and burn people and shoot and loot. And that's just been going on for years in this country. And it seems like it hasn't been addressed. So when we are at this point, at this time, even that the part where tomorrow, anniversary of May 3rd, has played a big part of what we are today, of taking democracy out of our system. We have fascism going amok and also racism going amok in our country. And we could have stopped it years ago if we would have had a notion to just follow and protect and serve the Constitution.
Yep. Well, yeah. So yeah, we've got, to me, the whole voting thing is the redistricting. I mean, I think, it's been going on for a while about gerrymandering, trying, and for people who aren't familiar with the whole gerrymandering, it's basically like changing the districts. It's like taking the city of Detroit and cutting it in half and then adding like maybe a white section of, Livonia or something to put a different balance on the voting. And that's how they're changing how when they talk about they're able to flip, and it started, this whole thing really got heated up when Texas said, we're going to redistrict. Then California said, okay, well, screw you. We're going to redistrict. And then, all these other states are looking at it. And I think it's kind of outrageous that the manipulation that's going on and really both sides right now. And it's just gotten ugly.
Allan, didn't we have that problem here a few years ago?
Yeah, we've had, we created a commission to review that and stuff like that. We want to have, that's why, right now we only have one black Congress member from Michigan, and that is John James, who a lot of people don't really feel like he represents them, particularly people in Detroit. But we've got a problem. When people aren't being represented, Michigan, Detroit, come on, it's such a, there are a lot of black people in the state. And so how is it that, in Louisiana, I think Louisiana, the state of Louisiana is at least a little over 30% black. And, trying to take away some of that representation like that is really, it's criminal. So
I just want to make a couple of points. Dave's with us. Go ahead, Allan. I just want to make a couple of points. Less is more, I call him. He made a comment that he wants to contribute less. Don't quit, Les. It's you. It's me. It's not you. So if I'm missing something, I'm trying to participate in the podcast and trying to read your comments too. And sometimes I screw up. So keep doing what you're doing. And I'm glad Day's on. Day and he's got another guest with him there. I can see an ear to his see it left. Day, I'm glad you came on because you want to talk maybe about minerals in African countries. And I'm glad I didn't quite follow exactly what I was reading. So maybe you can help us there.
Are you talking about the rare earth minerals?
Yes.
Okay. It's really called mining ecology. Mining ecology because I'm very familiar with rare earth minerals because I've been trying to bring rare earth minerals, mining ecology back here to Michigan because number one, in our country, we have a thing going on with energy, AI. We supposedly are 10 years behind China. So, and we had Donald Trump has also done executive orders. I've reached out to every single type of branch of offices to bring workforce development, economic development with rare earth minerals. My brother's in Africa right now. Has several ties to rare earth minerals. No wars, none of this unbiased BS is going on that they promoting through these media theory. So when it comes to rare earth minerals, mining ecology, you have to understand the end game with Ukraine and all these other countries. It's so many different things going on when you have a plethora, not just one rare earth mineral, 6 to 7 different type of rare earth minerals, and can't get no assistance. But we have state leaders in positions over our taxpayers' money that they are spending the money for all these different programs. We got enough waste, fraud, and abuse going on in our state, and everything that they're doing, where's the ROI? There's no ROI. And I just posted. We've been going through this for 60-some years, before I was even born. And we keep on complaining, talking about gas. We worry about the wrong things. Yes, does it affect people? But a lot of people can't even pay for gas. So what people need to be realizing, we complain about gas and food, but you at least can pay for it. Some people who can't even pay for it. Some people who only know where they're going to go the next day. So we need to focus on not what they're promoting and focus on working on our house, which is the state of Michigan, the city of Detroit, and be what we supposedly be. Native Detroiters and Michiganders. We got to really rise up and sit together.
Okay. Well, appreciate that. You're a knowledgeable man. Thanks so much.
I want to see your friend. Where did your friend go, Day? That you had to your left there.
Priya. This my puppy, Jim.
Let's see. What kind of dog is that? We can't see.
She's my ESA animal. She's a come here. She been shot. She's a blue female pit. She's 7 months old.
And what's her name?
Yeah. Priya, man, like the newscasters.
Priya.
I have a question. I have a question. I mean, we see a lot of pit bulls, and I see a lot on Facebook. There's always people pushing for adoptions of pit bulls.
Your answer right there, Allan.
Yeah.
It's all about how you train them.
Yeah, and some people are afraid. Some people are. I mean, I've seen a lot of beautiful, like very gentle pit bulls, but I think people are still afraid of pit bulls.
See,
what do you say?
Okay, my dad did, and Jim knows about this because he's a former police officer. My dad did canine and shits in training. So when I met my father for the first time in my life when I was 8 years old, he taught me. He had a Doberman Pinscher, and he taught me shits in the canine. And it's all about, number one, you have to decipher. You can't be both. You can't be the owner and the handler. It confuses the animal. And it's all about the training, what you put in the dog. You have to understand the dog, the temperament, what type, everything consists of the environment and the owner. Your dog is part of you. It's just like your child. They're a reflection of you. It's about what you put in them. Now, are you in control of them after they become 18, once they get out the house? But your dog is with you, like what they say, Allan and Jim, unless a dog is what? A man's what? Best friend.
Best friend.
And that's
when I lived in DC, you could not live in public housing if you had a pit bull, because they were sort of very demonized dogs. People were scared of them. They were used by a lot of drug dealers, use them and to protect the homes and stuff like that. And so I think the pit bulls have had a remake. Like I say, I see on Facebook all the time. I'm friends with some people who are very involved in dog shelters, and they're always saying, posting pictures of pit bulls and saying this is a beautiful dog and has a nice temperament and stuff like that. Like I say, I think some people are still, I mean, they are very strong dogs, and they're obviously very loyal dogs, as dogs, most dogs are. But I guess, there's different dogs that have different temperaments. I've seen little dogs are attack dogs.
It's the perception, Jim. It's the perception, because you're right. And the urban community, which I'm a part of, because I've been on every level of life. So when I was in the streets, unfortunately, yes, like Michael Vick, fighting dogs, because that's a culture. It's a cognitive dissonance. It's a growth process. We all go through stages of life. So just like my puppy here, as you can see, she has all her ears. The old version of me, I would have cropped her ears. But my friend, who was a traditional Hindu,
Why would you crop the ears? What was?
Because some dogs like a Rottweiler, a Doberman Pinscher, they're not born with their tails clipped. You have to clip them, so that's part of the breed. So like me, I thought that was part of the breed, but what people don't know, I didn't know a dog's ears, that's their intelligence. So when you cut her ears, you're taking away from her intelligence. It's like an antenna. You're taking away from her reception.
Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't know
that's
that either.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Karen Winston says that pitties are the sweetest dogs ever. Also with German Shepherds. Tails too, Karen says. She's cute. Janet says the president of the African country said that they would fight to the death. Timothy, Square Bay. Thank you, Timothy. Thanks, Day. Les says fake wars too. Iran. Les.
What? Hey, Jim, what's going on? What's going on in Africa that they're talking about a war in Africa? Because Africa, like, and Allan and most people, I just learned this. It's not like over here in the United States. They are, yes, it's a country, but they have regions and states, so it's different in Africa. So.
I want to read DeBragg's comment, because when DeBragg talks, we listen, and what he said is true. They've been burning up Black communities all over the country for years. White men created the drive-by because they used to drive by and shoot up Black communities on weekends and sundown communities. We can go into the details of all that, and the terror that Black people dealt with, which was criminal, in all parts of this country. In fact, in parts of this state, we think this is a more progressive state, but Dearborn is an example, of some of the issues we had in this state. So,
although I think Dearborn's changed quite a bit. I mean, Dearborn was sort of the white supremacist kind of community, but now it's a mix of.
I'm talking about in history, Alan. I'm talking about
sure. But I'm just saying that it's changed so much. I mean, you have a big Arab population, you have a Black population. It's pretty mixed now, and there's a Muslim mayor there now. For years there was Mayor Orville Hubbard, who was just known as a racist and white supremacist or whatever the term is. But anyways, we're kind of closing up here on the 1 hour mark. Any final statements anyone wants to make? Or
I want to ask a question. What happened to brother Shakur?
I talked to Adolph briefly about it yesterday. Adolph was getting some things done related to his medical issues, and apparently
I just asked because I'm very familiar with brother Shakur and his late mother, Mama Akua, over there in Zone 8. So when I seen that you all had him, I said, "Oh, small world."
Yeah, that was an Adolph deal, and we hope that he comes on. So, Les?
Yeah, I like to say on the continent of Africa, things are happening right now. They trying to unify the continent over there. I know Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traoré is one of the leaders of that. And then, of course, they got BRICS over there, where a lot of different countries are joining to I guess, reinvent the money system over there. So, and I'm sure they don't talk about it on the media here, but of course, I'm sure down the pike, they're going to have to talk about it, because the money is going to have to be recognized over there for over here. Right now they're trying to go use the yen for the oil prices right now. So, but it's a lot of things going on in the world. But we need to, like I said, somebody said, we need to take care of home. Home is first. Okay. We need to take care of home. There's a lot of problems here at home, and we always run across and spend a lot of money across the water. But we need to put that money right back into our hometown.
Yeah.
And my only comment is thank you, Dave. Thank you, Les. Thank you to everybody that joined us today. Your contributions make this show go. And thank you to Allan for hosting.
I'll say this, when we talk about it, I agree that, you can't spend $50 billion on a war, and who knows by the end how many billions more it's going to cost, and keep saying we don't have the money here for it. But I do believe sometimes, when we talk about September 11th of 2001, when we were attacked and stuff like that, we can't also ignore the fact that there's a world out there, and that we need to pay attention to the world, that we need to have allies around the world that can help kind of deal with some stuff. So I think it's a balance. But there's some people who say America first, screw the world. But I feel like you can't be that myopic and ignore stuff. And, and it's a global economy as well. And so when we have friendships with people, right now Trump is screwing up everything with tariffs, but we have relationships, trading relationships with different countries. And so I think it's important so sometimes it costs money to have relationships, but we also can't ignore what we have going here, which is we have a healthcare problem in this country. We've had it for a long time. We have a poverty problem in this country. We have a lot of issues. We have an education problem in this country, and a lot of those things aren't being addressed properly. And so, but we'll talk about it more. Our next show is going to be on Wednesday night, and I think as of now, we've got next Friday. We've got State Senator Mallory McMorrow, who is running for U.S. Senate. And so we'll hope that'll be a lively discussion. We look forward to that. So anyways, everybody, go Pistons. The Pistons play tomorrow at 3:30. I'm crossing my fingers they can pull it off. It's been yesterday was a miracle.
Great game yesterday.
Yeah.
Great game. Let's not forget Teresa.
No way.
Hey,
are
Allan,
they coming back. They're dead.
Let's make sure that we leave a line open for Jim, so Jim can call in this Friday and ask Miss Mallory the question. Big Jim.
Well, I think you can represent me day next Friday, and
I got you covered. If Allan and Adolph and Vanessa will let me ask the questions, I don't. I study geopolitical economics. I don't play no games with these officials.
And thank you to the other Les. Don't change who you are. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
He mentioned
salute to you, brother Les.
African countries.
Thank you, brother.
Yep. Look forward to meeting with you.
And less is more, and less is more in both cases.
Exactly. They're both.
Anyways, thanks again for watching us, and we'll be back on Wednesday night. And like I say, Friday, hopefully we'll have Mallory McMorrow, U.S. Senate candidate. So have a great day. Have a great weekend, and go Pistons.
Yeah, go Pistons.